This episode of the Accounting Insiders podcast is brought to you by Out-of-the-Box Technology. Out-of-the-Box Technology is your partner in accounting data services. With over 7,500 industry migrations performed and an expansive network of third-party integrations, a partnership with Out-of-the-Box will augment your advisory practice and turbocharge client accounting operations. Visit outoftheboxtechnology.com/insightful-accountant to get started.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Accounting Insiders podcast. My name is Gary Dehart. I'm the host of the Accounting Insiders podcast and the publisher managing partner for Insightful Accountant and Tax Practice News. My guest today is Kyle Turriff, who is the senior technical consultant at RLB Digital out of Ontario, Canada. Kyle, welcome. Thanks for taking a few minutes. I don't know. You've been a guest, I think, one other time. You've done a couple of webinars with us.
Yep.
And the last time I looked, I should have done this before we got on, but bear with me here. The last time I looked and checked our on our YouTube page, I think your first podcast was our most downloaded.
That's nice to hear.
Yeah. Here we go. Almost there. See if that's still the case.
Maybe we could beat it this time.
Let's see if we can beat it. That's right. Let me see. I know there's a quicker way for me to do this. Like I said, should have done it before, but hey, this isn't a real formal process.
That's all good.
So bear with me. Playlist. Here we go. If I can't find it in like 2 more seconds, I'm gonna punt. Don't spend enough time on it, so I'm going to punt and not waste your time or our listeners' time. But at one point, you were the most listened to and downloaded of all of our podcasts. So
that's awesome.
There you go. Well, I appreciate you taking some time again. So before we dive too far in, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, which you did in the previous, but different people listen at different times. And then tell a little bit about RLB and RLB Digital, kind of how your RLB Digital came about.
Sure. Yeah. So RLB Chartered Professional Accountants is a CPA firm in Ontario, Canada, as you mentioned. We're a fairly large regional firm in Canada. I led technology at the firm for 6 or 7 years. We started to do a lot more work for clients, technology advice, automation, integration, and I had the opportunity at the firm to start my own team that is purely client-facing. We called that RLB Digital, and we started that up about 2 years ago. So focusing in 3 main buckets: IT advice, software selection being number 1. That leads into integration, kind of low code, no code automation, custom integrations and reporting. So I have a small team of systems developers on the team as well. And then reporting being the 3rd bucket. So Power BI dashboards, custom reporting and manipulating reporting for even the needs of automation, or reporting from the automation and integration into those dashboards. So you can see the connection between kind of those 3 buckets. And that's where RLB Digital is helping clients, and we're helping clients across both Canada and the US right now.
Right. Okay. And then, but your background was not IT like from the start, right?
Correct. Yeah, correct. So actually started with, I went to school for professional golf management. I think we talked a little bit about that on the last one. So it's been a bit of an odd path, but then I was looking to become an accountant, started in our bookkeeping group. So I know the debits and credits, know enough to be dangerous in the bookkeeping accounting world. And then that's how I actually started with the firm. And then just with kind of my skill set, ended up getting the opportunity to take over the IT team and kind of built from there. So kind of reinvented myself a couple of times along the way.
Yeah. So you had a little more natural bend or interest on the tech side.
Exactly. Yeah. I think my natural fit is helping business owners utilize technology. And I think the partners at RLB kind of saw that along the way. And then that's now led itself to our clients. And I think really now I'm kind of operating in my sweet spot there of really helping business owners understand process and technology and where the two meet.
It's a great place to be, right?
Yeah.
Because it's, as they say, do something you love, it's not work. So
exactly.
Yeah, so that's awesome. So we're going to talk about kind of 2 main topics. One is demystifying digital transformation. I saw you had posted something on LinkedIn and thought, you know what, I like the topic because we all know we need to be either automating or we need to be leveraging technology. Chat GPT, can't get away from that. You can't open anything without seeing something about AI or chat
Sure.
GPT. But it's there. That doesn't mean I know how to use it. Doesn't mean I have the time to implement it. Doesn't mean that the desire to deal with it,
Yes.
right? Whereas,
Yep.
that's something you enjoy doing. And kind of in the green room I was sharing with you, we're moving to HubSpot, and quite honestly, I don't want to deal with it. And it's not what I enjoy doing. But like you also said, somebody's got to do it,
Yep.
and it's going to land on my plate. So we're going to talk about demystifying that transformation. Then we're also going to talk about just some of the questions and the things you're seeing from your clients. Like, what are they looking for? What's the stumbling blocks that they're hitting and calling you guys, going, "Hey, I know I need to do this. You got to solve this for me."
Sure.
And then we definitely want to give a shout out about the event that you have coming up on February 22nd. So kind
Okay.
of our main two topics, and then the shout out that we want to get to. So I'm going to go a little bit of reverse. What are you seeing from your clients? Like, what are the questions that are coming in that are pretty regular? Because if you got 5 people asking the same question, that's not the only 5 that have that problem, right? So what are you guys seeing?
Yeah, I'll start with what I think might be most relevant to your audience is around kind of like the cloud accounting space. A lot of people move to the cloud. What is cloud accounting? That's a term that was thrown around quite a long time ago. But now that we're there, clients are wanting to go beyond just the receipt capture software. I mean, the receipt capture software is especially great for bookkeepers and accountants, but the client still has to incorporate it. Some clients like it, some clients don't. That's usually where I'm finding a lot of businesses stopped, right? There's a whole other ecosystem out there that is going to tie in, and one that's often been dropped is invoice automation. So a lot of clients coming to us with, okay, I have a CRM system, HubSpot, like you mentioned. We need to get our invoices or some sort of trigger into QuickBooks Online or Xero. And how do we go about doing that? And a lot of times there's a native integration there that clients or their accountant wants to turn on, but it doesn't fit their flow, or the right data isn't coming across. You have to adapt to the native integration, and they want something different. So whether it's a workflow designed to do a daily batch upload, weekly batch, or it's one-to-one trigger on every invoice to go into the system, or a sales receipt. But that we tend to be getting a lot of work in that space, especially on the automation side, because there's a lot of data entry there. So it's that task automation for the cloud accounting space.
Okay.
The others, in more like a general sense, are scheduling, especially post-pandemic, depending on the type of business, but modernizing a scheduling process so people have their shifts, or have things available on their phone, or firms themselves wanting to get some scheduling and capacity planning. Where are people sitting? What are they doing? CRMs are a big one. So I think a lot of businesses are leaning into, we should be able to leverage the data we have and the interactions with our clients in a better way. And it sounds like Insightful Accountant is no different, looking at HubSpot to be able to consolidate what some of what you're doing. And so that word consolidation is also what we're seeing. It's not just we need to adopt more digital tools, which some businesses are going that way. There's a lot of businesses that have gotten bloat, right? There's too many tools, and we need to consolidate down. So I think that would be the next. I'm blabbering on a bit. There's one more I want to mention. Is phones. So like Teams phone or Zoom phone, not just the meeting, but is there a physical phone on the desk versus I have a number that rings my Teams or my Zoom? So phone system as a service through one of those two is a big one, especially for hybrid work. Why have the phone on the desk, or needing to use my cell phone at home, or giving my personal cell phone to a client? Having that business phone already be the soft client on Teams or Zoom is a big one. It's something our firm went through 2 years ago and has been huge.
Okay. I don't know. I don't know that I knew that as something that you guys, and is that something that RLB Digital does? You
We
can
can
work with
certainly
them.
help advise on it. It depends
Okay.
on the scale, but yeah,
Yeah.
from an IT perspective, for sure, we'd want to work. Depends on which way you went, but Zoom or a Microsoft partner would help implement that. So they have their own implementation teams, but guidance
Okay.
on your way there is definitely something we'd help with.
Okay. So so you talked about invoicing, scheduling, CRM, consolidation generally, and phone. Are there any particular solutions that you're seeing requests for, or as far as like specifically in scheduling or specific solutions that you guys recommend in invoicing, scheduling, or that CRM side?
It really depends on the industry, so I don't have like an exact answer for you there.
Okay. So it's
Um,
not like here's what I use. This is the only thing I use.
yeah, we try not to be too solution focused
Okay.
right up front. Uh, that you can take a problem focused approach or a solution focused approach. I think if you dig too far into either one of those, you're pigeonholing yourself. So
Mm,
we start with the problem and then move to a solution focus and
okay.
right fit or right time for right client. But a lot of projects are coming with a need for some sort of web form, customized data intake, right? And that really allows for some things to kick off on the back end of that. So building out some web forms for an intake process has been a big one, and how that ties into the workflow and the different apps people are using along the way.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
So let's talk about demystifying the digital transformation. So we know that
sure.
people are coming to you saying, "Hey, invoicing is a problem, or getting this all connected is a problem. Scheduling is something that we really know we need to improve. We need a CRM. We need to consolidate all this, and then, oh yeah, by the way, how about a phone system?" So that's not one. That's not one step, right?
Yeah,
To make
yeah,
any of those things happen. It's a financial commitment, it's a time commitment, it's a personnel commitment, um, and at some point, like I mentioned before, it's a matter of interest commitment.
sure.
Because if you don't have a buy-in on the firm side or the company side, it's going to get stretched out and probably won't be as good as it could be, right?
Yes. Yep.
So in your original post on LinkedIn, again, it was demystifying the digital transformation, a little bit about terminology. So there were 5 key things that you talked about. One was discover. So what's the discovery process look like in a digital transformation?
I think when people hear discover, and this is maybe where a lot of people start, and I've been guilty of this in the past, start Googling, right? So discover
Yeah,
people hear discover and they think, I need to
yeah.
discover all the tools that are available that can help me solve this problem.
Mm-hmm.
Don't start with the tools. Like I said, don't start with a solution focus. Discovery is about making sure you understand the problem. So what
Right.
are needs versus wants? Is there a path to consolidate with what you're looking to move into? So it's not just having like a vendor tell you that, okay, this is going to solve all your problems and kick off from there. You need to really sit down and understand what your problems are. And the bigger the organization you're working in, the more people and kind of cross-functional teams you want at least to bring into that process. You don't necessarily want to bloat the decision process, but understanding the problem and who it's going to affect is key because everybody brings a different lens into that. I'll use our firm as an example, what an administrative staff is going to need or want and look for versus what IT is going to want and need to look for what the partner wants versus what the client experience is going to be. There's a tension between all of that. Nothing does it all. So usually what the client experience is going to win out, but if you have an admin person or an IT person make that decision with their perspective, or you start with a vendor, you're looking at it right from the jump through the wrong perspective.
Right.
So bringing what those needs versus wants are through a discovery phase is going to help you narrow down your list.
Yeah, and really help understand what the end result is, right? Here's what we want, right?
Exactly.
Ultimately, the best client, experience, if that's it,
Yeah.
and then start building from there. It's funny, as you were talking, I'm sitting there writing notes because we have several things that we're trying to do currently that we're talking about but we have to keep talking about it because I mean, you do one thing, right? It's going to affect, numbers 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we need to
Sure.
make sure we get number 1 right. So we're not having to rebuild it when we implement number 2, number 3, etc. So,
Yeah.
so you helped me out a little bit in our thinking. So number 2
That's great.
item was prospect. So what are we
Yes.
talking about in prospect? What does that mean?
So we use this in two different, it fits our process. So we go through this process would be prospect number 2, sorry.
Yeah.
And it fits a digital transformation project, but it also fits just like a pure, say, automation project. We call it prospecting because you're looking for gold. Is it worth it? You prospect the land before you start mining, right? So you've taken what your needs or your wants are, you understand what you were looking for, and then you go and you look for it. It doesn't mean that you're about to decide, but this prospecting phase is usually where we're helping facilitate demonstrations, narrowing down the list, doing the vendor demos, and that's where you're going through your selection prospect. Where is the gold? Where are my needs going to be met? And can we add some wants in there too? That would be fantastic. And that's essentially a prospecting phase, is you're trying to find the viability of what you're looking for.
Okay. And then build is step 3.
Yeah, so build is interchangeable with implement. So you build out the solution. That could be, that it depends how far you zoom in or zoom out on what that looks like, but that's go live with HubSpot, right? What does that mean?
Right.
So there's some planning there.
Please don't
right?
even say that.
So it seems like we may have skipped a step in planning, but we just envision that as prospecting. You're doing the high level, and the first part of building is, okay, what's your plan? What's your project plan? And that's part of the build or implementation stage, right? So you see how there's 2 big stages before you just started to hit go with a trial,
Right.
A free trial. Free trial comes in step 3, and so that the decision quality is there, and you're ready to hit the ground with more of a focus on, we've made the right call here. How is it going to work? And you get into the details. So that's really kind of the building phase.
All right. Then how about support?
This is what I think often gets left behind, especially on an internal project. You would always think externally, well, I've done this for a client. Obviously, we're going to be there to support them through changes or some challenges that they may have. A lot of businesses implement a new piece of technology or process into their business, and then next week it's just assumed that that's done and we're moving on. right? So what are the avenues for support for your team, for questions, for reporting things that aren't working, creating that feedback loop for improvement? What is going to happen after your go live date that's going to make sure you're improving on a software? So many times businesses implement a piece of software, get it 70% of the way there, and are using 70% of the capabilities, but did never get to utilize that last 30%, which is oftentimes that 30% is what intrigued you by the software in the beginning, because that was the potential that it could do for you, but you never got there. So it's supporting through the process, so the 70% is solid, so you can start utilizing those additional features. Part of that is, I'm going to use caseware as an example, right? Caseware in firms, oftentimes, okay, we use caseware. The caseware iterates, it comes out with new things and new tools that they could use. Who at your firm is helping you understand how you could better utilize caseware, or even looking at what the new update was last year, or what's available from caseware? I'm using that as an accounting example, but there's how much you're already paying for it. What capabilities are you taking advantage of? And that support, that might be 10 years down the road from a caseware implementation. But don't forget, the tools that you're already using still need to be iterated and improved upon.
Right. And then actually staying on that vein on the support and on the using kind of the 70%, I bet it's even 40%. What do you have a feel for what people like that you're dealing with? I would say people who are coming to you with a problem or have a solution. How much of, and this is just a total guess, but out of 100% functionality, what do you
Yeah.
think people are actually using?
Yeah, it's 70 or 80 tops, but you're probably right in the 60 average. I think the biggest issue is that they get siloed into their specific use case
Yeah.
and not things don't need to integrate to work well together. Integration's great, automation's great, but things can still work together.
Mm.
As an example, I call it rounding out the edges, right? So we have a client with a very old reporting system that they need to get invoices into QuickBooks Online. They're not going to talk to each other. There's just no way. But QuickBooks Online has the import feature. Now the reports that they get out of this old system are not manipulated. They can't manipulate them. The old system just is the way it is. So do you just give up? Or do you say, hey, if I could just manipulate this report every week when we run it to get into the QuickBooks upload format, I'm going to save 15 hours a week of data entry. There's something, that you're not utilizing a very small feature within QuickBooks Online that is not necessarily automation, it's not integration, but you still save the 15 hours a week of upload. And we've done that for a client, right? So I call that rounding out the edges of a process. We didn't integrate them. We took one little feature of QuickBooks Online and saved them 15 hours a week that they just didn't know, A, that it existed, and B, how to best utilize it, because it would have taken just as much time to manipulate the Excel sheets that they got than versus keying it into QuickBooks, where we said, hey, you know what, that's repeatable. We can write a Python script that knows how to change that data for you. Now you review it and upload. So that I think that's one little piece, right, of a software that was just overlooked that saves somebody a lot of time.
A lot of time. I mean, and that's pays back weekly, right? I mean, 15 hours has been phenomenal. All right, and then analyze was number 5.
Yeah, so through this, and I mean, part of the reason to go digital or go cloud is there's a lot more data available to you. So analyzing how things are working, I talked about that with support and getting into that feedback cycle, but taking a look at what's working, what's not working, and iterating from there. So I think if you're adopting a new technology, don't forget about it a year later and start asking how it's going and getting some feedback and how can we better adopt things, or even working with your vendors to stop meeting with your customer success manager or your rep on week 3 because you've implemented it. Make that an annual cadence to see how it's being utilized.
Yeah, because and actually, I don't know if I saw this on your site or somewhere else, but it was leverage tech for continuous improvement. And,
exactly. I'm a big fan of continuous improvement. I like change. I realize not everybody does that, but I always kind of say, the status quo doesn't necessarily scale for growth. You need to be continuously improving. And that doesn't need to be just improving so you can grow top line. Part of it is just keeping your people focused on their highest and best use. So as you scale, like I'll use that 15 hours, that just grows as a company grows. So now you've got a body doing it's just data entry. At the end of the day, it's not their people's highest best use. So there's growth, there's overall growth, and then there's growth within the margins, and you need to continuously improve to be able to accomplish either.
And it seems like every week, right, there is a technology that can take on a little bit more workload, or to free up your employees to do, one, what they're better at, and two, what can be revenue positive, right?
And the biggest hurdle to it all
entry.
is what you've mentioned, is the time up front.
Yep.
You mentioned you're not looking forward to the HubSpot implementation, right? It's the put your head down and actually fix it.
It's already
build it.
already sucked a lot of time, and it's still sitting on somebody else's desk. So but we know, again, stay focused on that end result, right? Because we know if we do it and we do it right, it can dramatically reimagine our business if we use that tool the way it's built to be used.
I can't remember where this book is from, and it's bugging me that I can't, but there's a quote that goes something like this: is pick a solid beginning, be confident in the destination, and worry about the middle when you get there. Because if you just start worrying about that middle chunk, you'll never go anywhere. It's
Right.
kind of like the learning to fly on the way down. But know your landing spot, your destination is good and solid, and know that you've got the right starting point. That's where the discovery and prospecting comes in.
Yep.
And then the middle part is you're going to figure it along the way, because if you bog yourself down in the details, you'll never get started.
Yep. Yeah, we jump a little too quickly, I think. And again, we're a tiny, small little business, but I think sometimes we or not, I think, I know that we have kind of, what is it, ready, fire, aim kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you're spending more time fixing the stuff that you broke because you didn't think about what you were doing
Sure.
before you jumped in, right? But
Yeah.
I think having that solid end result or point where we're going is critical. So again, another note for me to think about what we're doing now. So let's go to creative automation examples. You shared one. What are
Sure.
some things that you've seen, just maybe two or three? And again, thinking of our core audience, our primary listener is going to be a bookkeeper, QuickBooks Pro advisor, Zero advisor, somebody who's a small business, working with small business clients.
Yeah, I think the invoice automation is one that's going to save clients time, right? Most, I'm not to say all, but a lot of accounting clients are handling kind of the revenue side on their end, because they need to invoice their customers. So how are they doing that and making their lives easier there? So, the accountant has good data, but are they doing that in a CRM system, and then some sort of data needs to be input into the general ledger? Why A, try and do it through the same system, and B, if that's not realistic, make that as quick and easy as possible. And usually that's either done through the native integration or Maker's Zapier. Now that can get fairly complex, and that's where you may need some help, but there's people out there like us that can help with that, but at least you can kind of get started. The next example is really, there's a lot out there on, like onboarding a client. I think that's the easiest place to start. Whether it's, the lead generation form on your website and what triggers off of that, from an automation standpoint, or notifications that go out, or, a screening process that you might put the client through, to find out if they're the right fit prior to booking a meeting. And then obviously the booking of that meeting through something like Calendly. Automating that process can really help, but there's a give and take to that too. Who's booking time in your calendar for like a small firm owner? You just get bogged down in it.
Right.
I think for us, one of the best uses we've put in place is honestly web forms, for things that you might not think about. So personal tax being a big one for our firm. The portal just didn't make sense for our clients, for like the families and how things were accessed, versus like where the corporate portal was. So we made it a one-way. Clients didn't really care. Like we're a lot more high net worth individuals. They're not looking for their return status or anything like that. They just want it easy. Here's my stuff.
Yeah.
I'm paying you to worry about it. So we made our submission process one way, and that made it opened up some avenues for us. So we created our custom way so we trigger the client with a custom link. They fill out a form, they sign it off, they can upload their documents, and there's some things we do in the background to that link that allow us to track it and route it through the firm when it's submitted. So it's going to the right administrative staff, tagged with the right team. We know who the client is. And that automation, putting it directly in box.com in the client folder, that now the preparer just goes there and looks for it. Instead of moving it around, it's now sitting in the right folder, ready to be prepared. And the client just had to fill out this form that's become now familiar over the past 2 or 3 years of submitting just their personal tax information. Again, a one-way street. They need to submit more documents. They do it the same way. It's smart enough to understand that. We have 5 offices, and a lot of our clients still like to bring things in. So we're not forcing the digital adoption wave. So what the really key part of it is scanning. Our frontline staff can scan things into the same folder, and it kicks off the exact same automation. So it's the same flow for our administrative staff with the same notifications, the same timing. Everything's the same. It's not two separate processes.
Yeah.
It's just us getting the client's digital documents into that same flow, but we've allowed the client to choose which way of getting us their stuff is most valuable to them. But our preparer staff don't need to think about where things are or where they are physically. You don't have to come into the office to get the shoebox, all that fun stuff. So now there's always exceptions. I mean, we have clients that have a lot of documents for their personal tax. Well, those don't go into the system. Like we handle the 10% exceptions as needed. And it's important not to let those whatabouts bog you down, because overall it's been a great success for our clients.
Yeah, and that's actually a really good point. Nothing's going to be perfect. There is no perfect solution, and not a one size fits all solution, right?
Yeah.
But even just kind of hearing what you were just saying just then, thinking of all the steps that y'all were able to automate or take out of the process, using what software, like what is that you would leverage for that automation?
Yeah, so it depends on what it needs to connect to and all those type of things. But like this isn't going to work on a Google form or Microsoft Forms or something like that. You need like a Jot form, Cognito Forms, maybe a type form, that type. And then there's usually some complexity that comes along with it from a security standpoint, the amount of documents it can handle and how they're routed. So I'm giving the accounting answers, it depends, but it's one of those tools are a pretty good way to get started. It was challenging up front, but especially on the Canadian side, we've got it down to pretty simple. We don't make it overly complex, right? There's probably 10 questions and some reminders that are relevant to this year and a sign off. And if you want to add a taxpayer to your submission, you can do that.
Yeah, and I think that might be one thing that people don't have a full appreciation of if they're not daily or even occasionally looking at what automation is and what it can do. I've dabbled in it enough to know that one, I don't need to be doing it on a regular basis. This is just not my sweet spot. But two, I have dabbled in it enough to know that there are a lot of things that you can build with it fairly simply. Using the tools that are, I'll say off the shelf, but that aren't, it's not overly complicated, but it does require you to sit down and think of the process. Again, going back to your, what's the problem we're trying to solve, and then, building it from there.
It's controlling your front door. And this is something I learned from Lean Six Sigma training, is the quality up front is the key to kind of the quality control and efficiency of a process. But you have a digital front door too. So controlling that allows you, you could do it in a way that's not a pain in the ass for your clients, but it allows you to control the process from there. You would not just let people physically drop things off without a receptionist or to route things or drop it on whatever desk the client felt they wanted to.
Right.
You need to control your digital front door too, and provide some controls around that. And that's why I keep going back to this web forms portion. It's not just about getting somebody's address, but it's allowing a common trigger point with structured information.
With an endpoint and an end goal.
Yeah, then you could do a lot more things with that because it's structured. I can take an email field. Well, that's different. And then once it's structured, you can do a lot of things with it. It's hard to automate anything without structure.
Right. Okay. So let's talk about, just as we wrap up here. So you guys have an event coming up. Today is the February 12th, 2024 that we're recording this. You've got an event on February 22nd, I believe it is.
We had
right.
Yeah, it's called our Team and Tech event. So RLB Digital, our counterpart at RLB is RLB People. So it's our HR and our IT consulting. We partner on an event that we ran in person in the fall. It was very successful. We're taking it online. It's a free webinar, a morning of 4 sessions, one on recruiting. You'll see it on the website or the link that'll be posted with this. One on recruiting, one on workplace accommodation, which will be more for Canada and Ontario with the laws. But then I'm running one on the anatomy of a digital adoption plan, which is a lot of what we talked about today. And then also some success stories on projects and automation projects from our firm and our clients. So
Okay.
hoping maybe anybody in your audience might find that valuable. It's a free morning, and you can kind of pick and choose which sessions you'd like to join.
Yeah, and we'll drop a link to that at in this recording. But I'm also going to post it on the Insightful Accountant. We'll push it out
Oh,
on our
amazing.
social,
Thanks
on
for
our
that.
social as well. Absolutely, absolutely. So, just in conclusion, so let's say most accounting firms are small accounting firms, right?
Yes.
And which means that not only am I running an accounting firm, I'm also looking for new business. I'm also the guy that has to take out the trash can and and do my own taxes, right? So how do I've listened to this and
Yeah.
I'm thinking, wow, Gary and Kyle are brilliant. Well, Kyle is. Gary's just a mouthpiece.
Oh, no.
But so how do I, as a small firm,
Yeah.
start? How do I start this process? And again, we gave the 5 steps, right? Discover, prospect, build, support, and analyze. But that's still going to take me time. It's still going to be a financial requirement. But probably the biggest concern is the time requirement. How do
Mhm.
how do I make that commitment?
Yeah, it's chicken and egg, right? Is the capacity come first, or is the investment come first to
Yeah,
build the capacity, right? So I think you have to force yourself to do it. It's a setting it aside, book it in your calendar, time block it off, commit to it. Um, the secondary part of that is have an answer to the question, who is helping you find a better way to do things? Is it the key techie person at the firm? Is it your vendor relationships? Is it your brother that kind of gives you some advice on the way? All great answers,
right.
but understand who it is and what their perspective they're bringing to the table, and or is it all me? Like, is it all you? I think
Right.
having an answer to who your go-to person is going to be key. That's going to help you and make sure you're involving them.
Well, but if the answer is it's me,
Sure.
that's a problem,
Yes.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
because I'm going to be a roadblock. I'm going to be a massive
Yeah.
roadblock if
And
if I'm trying
selfishly,
to run
that's
my
what,
firm, right?
that's part of what our business is trying to
Right.
get, the fractional CIO service on our end is helping provide that advice and accountability. So if it's,
Hmm.
you need to go outside, I think there are people out there that can help, like us. But if it is something that's going to need to be done internally, so understanding how big of an impact this is going to have on growing your firm and
Right.
committing to it.
Yep. And one thing, and then we really are going to wrap up on after
Sure.
this. And this, I don't know what our footprint is in Canada as far as for the podcast and viewing off of YouTube,
Yeah.
but you had mentioned before, and we were supposed to talk about it early, but we didn't. And that is this grant program that is in place in Canada. Again, it's for Canada, not in the US.
Yes.
Well, there might be
Yeah.
something in the US, who knows? But um,
Sure.
talk about that, because when we were kind of in the green room, you were saying that that has been a big driver for business for RLB specifically, but
Yeah.
it also sounds like it's a phenomenal opportunity for companies to take advantage of this,
Yeah. And
and
we
then
have a
whether they use
couple.
your services or not, right?
Exactly. And we have a couple accounting firms going through the program right now with us. It's called the Canada Digital Adopter Program. It's $15,000 in grant funding to work with an approved advisor, which we are, to help build a digital adoption plan. So we go in and look at a business or a firm and say, here are 3 better ways that you should be utilizing technology, and are providing them a plan and a roadmap to go forward. So again, available to any business in Canada with $500,000 in revenue or more. There's a couple more criteria, like being for profit, but if you hit those 2, you're probably good.
Okay.
The
Do you
the
know
one
where they go
caveat,
to? Oh, go ahead.
yeah, you can go to our website actually, digital.rlb.ca, and we have a link right at the top that'll tell you what you need to apply,
Okay.
and take you right to the government website for there. So
Gotcha. All right.
thanks for
Anything
the
else?
Canadian shout out there.
That's right. Well, I mean, it's free money, but I mean,
Yeah,
it's somebody's money, but
true enough.
it's, it's but it's something, and again, I think half the challenge, again, I have to always bring it back to our business, right? Because we're small. We don't have, we don't have people sitting around doing nothing. But if we had a well thought out strategic plan that said, do this, then that, then this, then that, that didn't cost me personally $15,000 to put together, I might be a lot more open to implementing
Sure.
that 5-step plan.
And I'd be remiss in saying we have done scaled down versions of that for companies as well. Like that's what we do. It doesn't have to be the grant. So for the US listeners, that's available as well. And we can do it. We can certainly do a scaled down version of what we would call an IT roadmap for you.
Yep. So perfect. Anything in closing? Although that was a pretty good one to close on.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for the opportunity and talking about maybe some of the services that we can provide. So I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, let's do this on a regular basis, because I think there's a lot that that you work on a daily basis, especially that's tied in with accounting, that our audience, whether it's just the listeners on the podcast or even on the website side and on our webinars, there's a lot that, again, I think I mentioned it before. I've said it before. I know I need to be doing these things. I know they're out there. I have this level of awareness, but I don't know where to start, and I don't know how to start. And so I do nothing. And then, 18 months from now, guess what? I'm still the same business. I'm still using my tools at 10% efficiency or whatever. But so maybe in our next conversation, let's talk about some action.
Sure.
Absolutely. How do we implement? How do I take step one and roll from there? So appreciate your time. We will get this information on that event. Again, it's called Building Your Team and Tech event, February 22nd. We'll get that posted and hopefully point some people your way.
Amazing. Thanks,
all right.
Gary.
Thanks, Kyle. Appreciate it. Good catching up.
Bye-bye. This episode of the Accounting Insiders podcast is brought to you in part by Xero. Xero is a powerful cloud accounting software that improves efficiencies across your practice. With all client data stored on a single unified ledger, you and your clients can easily access and collaborate on the same set of books. Xero's advisor tools and automation solutions reduce time-consuming manual tasks and put data entry on autopilot. Work faster and more efficiently than ever before with Xero. Visit xero.com/accountinginsiders to learn more.